Welcome to Everyday Dharma Talks, where silence becomes insight. I remember a time years ago when anger felt like a constant companion. It was less a visitor and more a resident. The house of my mind. The smallest things could invite it to the forefront. A slow driver, a forgotten item at the grocery store. A misspoken word from a friend, each was a slight, a personal offense that demanded my internal heated response. But there was one afternoon that stands out. I had been working on a project, something I had poured weeks of effort into. It was delicate work requiring patience and a steady hand. I was nearing completion when a family member, rushing through the room and not paying attention, knocked the entire thing from the table. It shattered on the floor. In that instant, a fire erupted within me. It was hot and blinding. I remember the sensation of blood rushing to my face. My hands clenched into fists so tight my knuckles were white. The words that came out of my mouth were not mine. They were sharp, cruel, and aimed to wound. I saw the look of shock and hurt on their face, but the fire inside me didn't care. It only wanted to burn. For the rest of that day, and for days after I stoked that fire, I replayed the moment over and over. I polished my arguments for why my anger was justified. I cataloged the injustice. The project was ruined, yes, but the anger was doing a different kind of damage. It was ruining my peace. It was a poison I was drinking, hoping the other person would suffer. I was living inside a storm of my own making. And the original event, the accident, was now just a distant echo. One evening, sitting in the quiet of my room, exhausted by the sheer effort of being so angry, a simple thought arose: who is actually suffering right now? It wasn't the person who had made the mistake. They had apologized, they felt remorse. But they had moved on. The only person still trapped in that moment of shattering was me. I was the one keeping the fire alive, feeding it with my thoughts, my memories, my pride. The initial spark of the event was long gone, but I had built a bonfire. The lesson from that painful experience was this: an external event may provide the spark for our anger, but we are the ones who provide the fuel. The true root of our suffering doesn't come from, but from our own unwillingness to let it burn out. We add the dry wood of our stories, our ego and our attachments, turning a fleeting moment of heat into a destructive, all-consuming fire within. We often confuse the intense energy of anger with a feeling of power. In that moment of fury, we can feel righteous, justified, strong. It is a hot, crackling, and dramatic energy. It demands attention. It feels like doing something. But this is a deception. It is the fleeting, explosive satisfaction of a firework. It bursts brilliantly in the dark, a spectacular display of light and noise. And then it is gone, leaving only smoke and an emptiness that is darker than before. We are left feeling drained, regretful, and disconnected. This is not true strength. It is a momentary release that ultimately weakens us and harms those around us. True and sustainable satisfaction is not found in the explosive burst, but in the steady, quiet warmth of the sun. The sun does not need to rage to prove its power. It simply is. It provides light and warmth consistently, quietly, and unconditionally. It allows things to grow. This is the nature of a mind that is not consumed by the fire of anger. This deeper satisfaction comes from understanding. It is the quiet joy of seeing a difficult feeling arise and having the wisdom not to feed it. It is the profound relief of letting go of the need to be right. It is the spaciousness that opens up inside of us when we are no longer a prisoner of our own reactivity. Chasing the fiery burst of anger is to be perpetually caught in a cycle of excitement and exhaustion. Learning to cultivate the gentle warmth of understanding is to find a source of peace that never runs out. It is the difference between a fire that burns down the house and a hearth that warms it through the long night. I would like to gently invite you to become a student of your own inner fire. This is not an invitation to suppress your anger or to pretend you don't feel it. Suppression is just another form of violence directed at ourselves. Instead, this is an invitation to observe, to understand, and to be kind. The next time you feel that familiar heat begin to rise, pause. Just for a single breath. Before the story begins, before the blame is assigned. Before the sharp words are formed, just pause. I invite you to look at the anger not as you, but as a visitor. See it simply as a powerful energy that has arrived in your mind. Notice where you feel it in your body. Is your jaw tight? Is your chest constricted? Is there heat in your face? Don't judge it. Don't push it away, as you would acknowledge a dark cloud passing in the sky. The advice is this: see the spark, but do not add the fuels. The spark is the initial feeling, the sting of an unkind word, the frustration of a plan gone wrong. This spark is natural, human, and unavoidable. The fuel is the story we tell ourselves about the spark. He always does this to me. She has no respect. This is unfair. I am a victim. This story is the kindling. Without it, the spark has nothing to burn. It arises, glows for a moment, and then, deprived of fuel, it fades away on its own. Your task is not to extinguish the spark, which is impossible, but simply to withhold the fuel. Just watch the initial feeling, without adding the layer of thoughts, judgment, and narrative on top of it. This is the entire practice. The laboratory for this practice is our everyday life. We do not need grand dramas to understand our anger. The smallest moments are our greatest teachers. Think of the feeling that arises when you are in a hurry and you find yourself in the slowest checkout line. That is the spark. The fuel is the internal monologue. Why did I pick this line? Look how much faster that one is moving. The person in front of me is so disorganized. The practice: feel the heat of impatience. Acknowledge it. Breathe. And then simply watch the person ahead of you. Listen to the sounds of the store, and feel your feet on the floor. Withhold the fuel. Consider the flash of irritation when a loved one leaves. A dish in the sink after you've just cleaned the kitchen. That is the spark. The fuel is the story. They don't appreciate my work. I am the only one who cares about this house. This is a sign of disrespect. The practice: feel the sharp point of annoyance, and then, instead of adding the story, simply pick up the dish and wash it. Or if you need to speak about it, do so later from a place of calm, not from within the fires. Imagine the defensiveness that flares up when someone gives you unsolicited advice or a mild critique. That is the spark. The fuel is the ego story. Who are they to tell me? They think I'm incompetent. I need to prove them wrong. The practice: feel the sting to your pride. Notice the urge to defend. And just for a moment, do nothing. Simply hear their words as information, not as an attack. Let the spark die out. In these small, mundane moments, we find our freedom. True peace is not a life without sparks. It is a life where we have learned, with great compassion for ourselves, not to build a wildfire. Thank you for following the podcast. We will meet again in the next story. Be well.